Okay.
Ready.
All right, we'll get started. Sorry for the delay. We'll start with the chanting. Om Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om
Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
So today we are supposed to take up another Acharya's teaching, Sri Ramanujacharya. Let me get to that page.
No.
So Maharaj says from Vedanta that South India is famous for three things: Achar, Achara and Acharya. So Achar is people, Achara is all kinds of rituals, and Acharyas, these great spiritual teachers, they all hail from South India. So Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and you just name it. It's a whole lot of Acharyas from South India only. So before we get into Ramanujacharya's teachings, I would like to know if there is any question on Shankaracharya's teachings that we just finished. And I just want to mention one more thing in that context, that when we said we finished, it's a very brief description of Shankaracharya's teachings, just an overview, just a highlight on the overview. And we can go very, very deep into it, and it's volumes and volumes of his commentaries and works are there. And some are very, very technical, and some are not that technical, but we didn't get into that. Only the spiritual practices, the steps, we kind of covered at a high level. So, any question on that? If not, we'll proceed to Sri Ramanujacharya's teaching.
So South India is famous for Achar,
Achara and Acharya. Achar is pickle, Achara is rituals, and Acharya is the spiritual teachers.
So, they can even say it correctly. Like, there is a book called Approach Anubhuti.
Right.
Swami Sarada, he has a series of lectures on that.
Right.
I tried listening to it, but it's over my head.
Right.
So I don't know, sometime you could.
Yeah, sure. So Aparaksha Anubhuti means direct perception, not paraksha. Aparaksha is direct perception of God. And all these acharyas, they talk about direct perception, and they have a slight, subtle variation in the way they approach the same thing. And we talked about it, the non-dualistic approach, and the dualistic approach, and qualified non-dualistic approach. By the way, Ramanuja belongs to which category? Which school of Vedanta? No, not Advaita. Vishishta Advaita. And another name for that is qualified non-dualism. Qualified non-dualistic school. So, one day we might actually work on that. So, let me first give some short biography of Sri Ramanujacharya. He was born on 1017. So, can you imagine what's how many years this year? Exactly 1,000 years ago he was born. And he happened to live for 120 years. He made up for Shankaracharya. How many years Shankaracharya lived?
32. 16
Only
plus 16.
32 years. And he lived, Ramanujacharya lived for 120 years. And he was born in a Tamil Brahmin family, Tamil Nadu, of course. And he mastered all Vedas and Shastras at the age of 16. Took sannyasa at the age of 30, right, and took the name Ramanuja Muni. He was married before he took sannyasa, he was married, unlike Shankaracharya. He was known as the incarnation of Vishnu or Adishesha. If you have noticed that picture on top, there is that Vishnu and Adishesha is there. You know. Right. And like we said, that he was a chief proponent of the qualified non-dualism, the Vishishta Advaita, and also Sri Vaishnavism. So there is a subtle differences between Sri Vaishnavism that he propounded and just the Vaishnavism in the north. Sri Chaitanya's, Chaitanya Dev actually emphasized on, basically same, but he emphasized on Krishna and Radha. And here Ramanujacharya emphasized on Vishnu and Mother Lakshmi, right? So Sri Vaishnavism is what he preached. And his devotion and self-surrender to Vishnu is the means to liberation, mukti, right? He was a priest of Kanchipuram, Lord Varadaraja temple. Have any of you been there? We were there with Maharaj from Dasanandini. And Nandini can tell very nice stories about Varadaraja sometime later, actually not right now. So that's where he was, Sri Ramanujacharya was a priest of. Studied scriptures under his gurus, Nathamuni and Yamunacharya, another acharyas. Wrote very well-known commentaries on Upanishad, Brahma Sutras, and Bhagavad Gita. Usually, even the acharyas, when they commented on Brahma Sutras, their name is there, like Shankara's Bhashya. But in his case, it is Sri Bhashyam. His mother, Sri Lakshmi.
Sri Lakshmi, Vidya Lakshmi.
Vidya Lakshmi. Actually, he got, in his dream, I don't remember the exact story, but that's how he got this name, Sri Bhashyam. It should be called in this name, not Ramanuja's Bhashyam. So he had the extra privilege there in the commentary that he wrote on Brahma Sutras. And sometimes I just wanted to quickly mention that, as you can see, people from these acharyas from different school of Vedanta is actually commenting on the same Upanishad. So sometimes we think Upanishad is all Advaita. No, that's not true. It can be interpreted as Dvaita, it can be interpreted as Vishishta Advaita, it can be interpreted as Advaita. So obviously they wrote the commentaries in that light.
What is Bharadwaja? I can remember that I tried Bharadwaja.
In Kanchipuram.
No, it's Varadaraja. He is the one giver of boon. He is
Right.
the king of giver of boons. Varadaraja. Yeah.
Vishnu?
Beautiful Vishnu. Beautiful face. Dark stone, black stone
It's
murti.
God, right?
Vishnu.
Yeah.
Vishnu has the most bewitching smile in that statue. Once you see that smile, you'll never forget for the rest of your life. That most beautiful smile I've ever seen. Big, very big statue.
It seems Ramanujacharya's Samadhi is in Srirangam temple even now. He's in the Garbha Mandir, the Sanctum Sanctorium of Srirangam temple. So we have already mentioned that he is the proponent of Vishishta Advaita, qualified non-dualism. What does Vishishta Advaita say? He says Brahman or God is with qualities. Saguna Brahman. You have heard about Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. So to him, Brahman or God is not Nirguna, he is Saguna, with full of qualities. And it's also Ishvara, same thing. And God is the whole, and everything else, all the whole creation, sentient or unsentient creations of God is part of it. That whole and part relationship. So a jiva is never a God, or can never attain to that level as merging in Brahman and things like that, what Shankaracharya preached, right? So in Vishishtadvaita, there is a concept called Tattva, Hita and Purushartha. Tattva, Purushartha and Hita. But Tattva is ultimate truth. So knowledge of Jiva, always there are three things. Jiva, the individual soul, the universe, Jagat, and God. If we can understand the nature of these three and the relationship, that is the whole idea about spirituality actually. Once we understand, the more we understand the relationship and the true nature of these three, Jagat, Jeev, Jagat and Ishvara. So individual soul, universe and God, what is their nature and what is the relationship between those three. So that is Tattva, ultimate truth. And then Purushartha is goal to attain is Purushartha. And what it means is liberation from bondage. We all know, right? All acharyas would talk about the same thing. There is no difference between that. We are in bondage, and how to live, transcend that. How to get liberation from this bondage is Purushartha, a goal to attain. And third is Hita. Hita means to attain the goal, the ways to attain the goal. And according to Ramanujacharya, it is karma and jnana. We'll see more into it later. But karma and jnana we have to do, and that leads to bhakti. As opposed to Shankara's karma and bhakti, that leads to jnana. So the difference is where the way they interpret the things. When Shankara said karma and bhakti, he is actually talking about the karma kanda of the Vedas, where bhakti is the upasana. Bhakti is the upasana. You have a chosen ideal, you are worshipping him. Through that you are trying to reach the impersonal. Through the personal you are trying to reach the impersonal. So that is what he is calling bhakti. Karma is of course the scripture ordained duties, right? Nitya karma, naimittika karma. All this karma is same for both Ramanujacharya and Shankara. But what Shankara refers to as bhakti is actually upasana. But that leads to that actually, I mentioned that Maharaj always says it is also dharma kanda. Karma kanda is also dharma kanda. And the reason we call it dharma kanda is it is a mixture of karma and upasana is also part of it. And also another reason is it's done in a dharmic way, not any kind of karma. Maharaj gives an example that if you go to grocery store to get milk, that is also karma, but we don't need Vedas for that. So karma kanda and sometimes called upasana kanda, but combined is what the upasana kanda is what Shankara is referring to as bhakti. But that leads to the Vedanta of the Upanishad, which is the Jnana kanda that Shankara refers to. But here in Ramanujacharya's case, he is saying karma, same karma, scripture ordained activities, actions, followed by jnana. But here he is not talking about Upanishad. He is talking about the understanding of the nature of those three: Jiva, individual soul, the universe, and God. Proper understanding of that will come through karma again. Chitta Shuddhi, purification of mind will happen through the karma that will take us to that jnana, where we will understand the true nature of these three, that is his jnana, and that will ultimately lead to devotion, bhakti, which is nothing but self-surrender. Ultimately, his path is called prapatti marga. Prapatti means self-surrender. You are surrendering totally to Vishnu. In his case, Vishnu and Mother Lakshmi. So, but if you look at this tattva, purushartha and hita, it can be applied anywhere. For example, let's say Swamiji's, the 4 cardinal principles. Swamiji said the first one is each soul is potentially divine. That's actually tattva. Ultimate truth. Each soul is potentially divine. What is Purushartha? The second one is saying
The goal of life.
our goal is to manifest the divinity within by controlling the nature external and internal. Swamiji is saying that is nothing but Purushartha, our goal to attain, right? And then in the third one he is saying, Swami Vivekananda, do it by work or worship or
Psychic
control or knowledge. All these 4 yogas he is talking about, right? That is the hita. So you can map it to pretty much all the acharyas teaching into this tattva, purushartha and hita. But this is actually originated from qualified non-dualism school of Vedanta, the Vishishta Advaita. We'll get into each one of these more later in this, later slides. Any questions so far?
Tirthankar, I have one question.
Sure.
The way I understood is Shankara says in Advaita that bhakti leads to jnana, and Vishishta Advaita jnana leads to bhakti.
Right.
Two different.
But
both,
yeah.
the meaning of jnana is different. Is that what?
Right, exactly. So in case of Shankara, Jnana is the ultimate, Jnana of the Upanishad, knowledge of the Upanishad,
Okay.
and all the Mahavakyas. That is Jnana, which is done through the last part, Sravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. When we hear from our Guru, spiritual teacher, the Mahavakyas, we have to keep on contemplating on it. Manana, Sravana, Manana, we have to reflect on it. And Nididhyasana, through meditation, that knowledge will become part of us. So that was Shankara. But here, the ultimate thing is bhakti. So in a way, if you see, the path is also bhakti, devotion, and the means and the goal both are devotion. Finally, you are arriving at, actually the final thing is, according to Ramanujacharya's Prabhati, the self-surrender to God. And he's very big on that, self-surrender. And if you look at it, in case of Shankara also that idea is there. How can I merge with Brahman, keeping my identity as is? That doesn't make sense, right? Until I self-surrender my current identity, existing identity, I cannot reach Brahman. Swami Ranganathananji, used to say that, we say that let thy kingdom come. Until and unless my kingdom goes away, thy kingdom cannot come. Same idea. My kingdom is the current identity. Until that goes away, thy kingdom will not come. So there are subtle differences you have to keep in mind. But ultimately, as Maharaj says always, that sadhana, for any teacher, it is basically the same thing. Why? Because they all agree that we are ignorant. That's it.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Like it is taught in Advaita that the ultimate in microcosm is Nirguna Brahman.
Right.
So, in what way is it different from Saguna Brahman of Vishishta Advaita? Then both are
So both are talking about Brahman. One is talking about the Nirguna Brahman, and actually both Nirguna and Saguna Brahman in case of Shankara. But he is saying Brahman alone is there, nothing else. So there he is actually denying the creation. He said there is no, whenever I talk about creation, that means it's separate from the creator. So the creation is different from Brahman. He said, no, there is nothing else but Brahman. Nothing. And Ramanujacharya, we will see in a minute, he is saying all the things that we see is reality. It's not unreal. It is reality, but it is actually part of God. God is like the sun, and each one of his rays are like each one of us. The plants, trees, animals, each one of us that one ray of sun. God is like the whole tree, we are like one leaf or one part of it, just a minuscule part of it.
There is another way of looking at it. Actually, they are looking at the same thing in two different ways. Shankaracharya is saying that Brahman alone is real. Whatever we see, this entire universe, the whole manifestation, is nothing, it's mithya in the sense that it is changing aspect of the Brahman. So that's why he calls it as unreal, because it is changing. He is focusing only on the changelessness aspect of the Brahman. So that's why he's saying Brahman alone is real. Here in Vishishta Advaita, Ramanujacharya is saying no, we'll take this manifestation also, because it's manifestation of Brahman only. So that's why he is focusing on the Saguna aspect of the Brahman, because we are seeing this whole reality, the entire universe, and that he is focusing on that, saying that let's call that also real, right?
Yeah. So we will see more into it. We'll get more into these ideas in the later slides. So if we concentrate on Ramanuja's concept of God and Brahman, according to him, that is the only reality. Do you see any difference from Shankaracharya? No. That's the only reality. But that God is both immanent and transcendent. Does it make sense? So it's both in the manifested form and in the unmanifested form. Vyakta and avyakta. Manifested, unmanifested. Whenever we are seeing any manifestation, it is God only, Brahman only. It's just a part of Brahman, part of God, part of Ishvara. But when the creation goes away, goes out of existence in the time of pralaya, we talked about it, in the time of dissolution, Ishvara is still there, Brahman is still there, in the avyakta form. There is no manifestation, but in the avyakta form, in unmanifested form. So God is still there. So both immanent, in the manifested, we can see, we can perceive. Whatever we are perceiving is God, it's part of God only. When the creation is not there, then also God exists. And God is a self-conscious being possessed of will, and through God's willpower this whole creation happens. It comprised of both matter and spirits. So this is where there is a subtle difference. Anything that changes, Shankara actually discarded that, and started including our mind and buddhi and everything. Manobuddhi, chitta, hankara. All these things are not Brahman. But he is saying both matter and finite spirits are part of God. They are part of God. This is a technical term that I would like to briefly describe what it is. Three types of Veda. Veda means differentiation. Not the Veda, the four Vedas. It's Veda, Veda. So Vijatya, Sajatya and Swagata Veda. You know, it just so happened last time when Maharaj came, last year, he was explaining something and this term came up. And he looked at me and said, covered this in the Vedanta concept class. So I have no choice. So here we are with the three, and it's a very interesting thing. Vijatya, Sajatya and Swagata Veda. Vijatya is heterogeneous differentiation. I'll come to an example for each one of those. Sajatya Veda is homogeneous, right? And Swagata is within the same thing, differentiation. It's not different species altogether. So example is, Vijatya is like, heterogeneous, like apple tree and a mango tree, right? Completely two different trees. Sajatya, the homogeneous is same apple tree, but there could be different types of apples, right? Gala apple and ambrosia apple and this apple, that apple. Same species, but different types. And Swagata is within the apple tree, all the different things within the apple tree, the leaves, the branches, the roots, the everything, they're separate, but they're actually part of the whole thing, tree, apple tree. So as you can imagine, Ramanuja's Vishishta Advaita, Ramanuja's concept is Brahman or God is devoid of Vijatya and Sajatya. So they are not, God is not homogeneous or heterogeneous. Why not? Because there isn't another thing like God. Or dislike, because everything is part of God, there isn't another thing that is the opposite of God. So it's devoid of both Vijatya, homogeneous and heterogeneous differentiation. But Swagata Veda is there because God is the whole thing and we are all part of God. So the part and whole relationship is there. So God has parts. And so the tree and their parts. So Swagata Veda is there for Vishishta Advaita and Ramanujacharya's idea of God. And if you can recall, Shankara's, what would be the, with respect to these three, how do you characterize Brahman based on this Vijatya, Sajatya and Swagata Veda? It's devoid of all three. It's devoid of all three. So there isn't like anything like Brahman, there isn't anything opposite of Brahman, there is no parts of Brahman. There is only one truth, that is Brahman. There is no components of Brahman. That's why it's devoid of all three, Vijatya, Sajatya and Swagata Veda. That's why it's called Ekam Eva Aditiyam. It's not only Aditiyam, there is no simile of this. You cannot find another thing like this. It's Aditiyam as well as it's Ekam. There is no part, whole part relationship. So Ekam Eva Aditiyam. That is Shankara. Like we said, possessed of qualities, Shaguna Brahma, right? This omniscient, omnipotent, all-pervading and compassionate. Yeah.
So comprised of both matter and finite spirits. Both sound like limited, right?
No, so he is not looking at, Ramanuja is not looking at limited. Yeah, it is finite, but it comes from God. We will get to that even more, in later slides, more detail. So, both finite and infinite, both the soul and the matter is part of God. We will get to that in a second. So, Maharaj puts it very nicely, this quality, Saguna, the qualities of Ishvara according to Vishishta Advaita Ramanujacharya. He said, omniscient. So God is all-knowing, right? All-knowing is fine. God is all-knowing. That doesn't help me. Is he? Then says omnipotent. He is all-powerful. Okay. that helps little. Okay, God is not only all-knowing, He knows everything, He is all-powerful, He has the power to do also, that helps. But He is all-knowing, all-powerful, and if He is in India, when I need Him in US, that's not helpful, right? But only they say, no, it's all-pervading. He is everywhere. He is everywhere. He is not just in USA or India, everywhere. He is all-pervading. That helps. Okay, God is all-knowing, and He knows our problem and good thing, bad things, and He is all-powerful. He can do something about it, and He is everywhere. So that helps a lot. But He is not compassionate. That doesn't help. He cannot solve our problems. But this thing, He is also compassionate. So all these four: omniscient, omnipotent, all-pervading, and compassionate. So He is not only powerful and all-knowing and everywhere, but He can solve our problem. So these are the qualities. I mean, obviously you can come up with any number of qualities, but at a high level. Ishvara is the one who creates, sustains, and withdraws the world. Withdraws at the time of pralaya. We have already talked about unmanifested and manifested. Unmanifested cause, manifested effect. Effect means manifested. And when it's unmanifested, the cause, effect is not there, but the cause is there. Karana Sharira. And at the cosmic level, Ishvara is the Karana Sharira. Individual soul controls individual body mind. There is one way to look at it. God controls the universal mind and body. He says, in the individual soul, even in Gita it says that God is inside us. Ishvara sarvabhutanam riddhishe Arjuna tishtati. So, God is within us. So, from within, He is actually controlling everything. Every movement requires God's help. Everything I'm talking, that requires God's help. When I'm eating, that requires, the digestion requires Jasharagni, requires God's help. So everything requires, so that is like within the individual body. Similarly, in the whole universe, God is the controller there. He's controlling the whole universe. The whole universe is like His body. But He is within and controlling, from within He is controlling the whole universe. God is object of worship and the goal of spiritual aspiration. It's not just object of worship, it is also the goal. We have to reach this Paramatma, the Vishnu, whatever name we give it. That's the goal of spiritual aspirations. By pleasing God through prayer and surrender, self-surrender, liberation can be obtained through His mercy. You cannot say that, oh, I surrendered. There you go. Fall. So, you have to do all those things. You have to do prayer, you have to do meditation, you have to do self-surrender. All those things you have to do. And He has given step-by-step approach to that. We'll come to that later. But don't think it is happening because of your self-effort. It is through His mercy. If we get liberation, it will be through His mercy, God's mercy only. God's kripa, Guru kripa, Ishwar kripa. Any question on that?
The self-conscious being possessed of will, is he referring to the Atman?
Yeah. It's more than the Atman. Atman, typically we say, which is the same thing from Shankara's point of view. Atman, Brahman is same thing. But, he's actually talking about the Ishvara. Ishvara, by his will, is creating the whole entire creation. By his own will, I want to create. And the whole creation happens. And he doesn't need anybody's help. He's self-conscious. He's full of consciousness itself. He is the consciousness itself. He doesn't need he's not dependent on anybody for his creation. So he's self-conscious. For his consciousness, he is not dependent on anybody. That's why he is self-conscious. And also, he, by his will, we talked about, even at the individual level that is there, the Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti and Kriya Shakti, these three things we talked about. Because of my knowledge, the desire comes, I want to create. For Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, even at the individual level that happens. I want to do something. All this thought gets translated into action. Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti. Jnana is at the thought level. That gets translated into Ichha Shakti. Desire happens. Kriya Shakti. All the activities that we get involved in subsequently. So Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti. Same thing actually, it applies more in case of Ishvara. That's where it comes from anyway. So by his knowledge, he wants to create, and the whole creation happens. Let there be light, and there was light. Then what is this concept of the world, the universe? God only creates this manifold world out of himself. So he is not only if you look at the cause, I don't know if we mentioned that, there are upadana karana and nimitta karana. The material cause can be divided into two. Material cause and the intelligent cause or the efficient cause. Let's say a jewelry, a bangle. You need two things. You need some material, which is gold, to create that bangle. And then somebody, a goldsmith. You need a goldsmith to take the gold and create a bangle out of it. So in this case, both the material and the goldsmith, both the gold and the goldsmith is Ishvara. So the material comes from God, no, not from anywhere else, from God. And God himself is the goldsmith. So he creates the entire world. But this manifold world.
Is that different from Advaita?
Yeah. So again, Advaita, he will not say manifold world at all. There is no manifold there. There is no multiplicity. There is oneness. And there is only one Brahman, nothing else is there. Nothing except Brahman. So if I see a tree, then what is the problem? Because of our inability to see Brahman in the tree, we are calling it a tree. Because of our inability to see God in you, I am saying you are Nitya. But a saintly person, Holy Mother, sees us all as, she is seeing God in everybody, everything. That's the difference of a Brahmajnani and a normal people. So, from that perspective, there is no multiplicity. And what Ramanujacharya is saying, all this multiplicity came from God. These are all part of God. Shankara is saying that there is no multiplicity. In essence, they are Brahman. In essence, they are Brahman. Your inability to see Brahman in that, he was saying, so it is Sat, Chit, Ananda, Nama, Rupa. These five things. Any object that we perceive has these five things. Sat, Chit, Ananda, Satchidananda, Nama, Rupa. Our entire focus is on Nama, Rupa. We don't know anything outside of Nama, Rupa. And a saintly person, they don't know anything outside of Satchidananda. Any object that they interact with, any person that they interact with, they don't see anything but Satchidananda. Yeah.
So, can we, I'm just thinking can we equate this to the manifested Brahman according to Advaita?
Yeah, so again, strictly speaking, we can say that it's manifested, Brahman manifested, but we should not get the idea that it is something else from Brahman. The moment we think that the manifestation is something the manifested effect is something different from Brahman, we are down. So that's why in a true Advaitin, they cannot even say manifested. It's like they use the term projected. Because it's like the spider projecting outside, projecting itself to all these waves and all those things that we see, and then retracts it. So there is not outside of, it's nothing but the spider. The whole creation from Brahman, it originates and gets dissolved into Brahman. There is nothing else. Different ways of looking at it. That's all. We should not, get bogged down by these differences. As long as we keep these subtle differences, they're talking about the same thing only in a different way. And that's why they're called non-Advaitist and Advaitist and qualified Advaitist and all that. So there are subtle differences, but again, as Maharaj says, I need to emphasize that in sadhana there is no difference. We all accept that we are ignorant, and somehow we need to get rid of that ignorance. And they all talk about sadhana is how to get rid of that ignorance. Yeah.
Do you want to mention the fact what Thakur says in Gospel?
What?
Thakur gives a beautiful analogy that here is this ocean and there are some icebergs floating inside the ocean. Thakur says when the bhakti him, that's the cold, when the cold of the bhakti comes, then some of this Satchidananda ocean crystallizes into the iceberg. Iceberg is nothing but part of the ocean, and it is the same water. When the Jnana Surya, the heat of the Jnana comes up and melts the iceberg, then the iceberg actually melts back into the same ocean. So it's the same ocean taking different aspects. A beautiful way to look at it.
So the iceberg was also water?
Yes.
And the iceberg melted, it's all water. It started with water, it ended in water. So water only exists. That's what Shankara is saying, Brahman only exists.
How do they term the surrender there with Advaita? So when you say how they say you surrender completely towards, but when you see in that angle where you're seeing everything as Brahman,
Right.
how do you surrender?
Yeah, so it is, once again, the thing that we talked about, what is the problem? Our current identity is, I am the body, I am the mind. And that creates the gamut of problems. All our actions and reactions and behavior and everything is based on our identity that I am the body, I am the mind. So according to Shankara, that is wrong. In fact, everybody will say that. So by doing that, by saying that I am the body, I am the mind, I am limiting my true nature. So once we go out of that body-mind concept, it's just like, anytime we see an object, we see only name and form. We don't see the Satchidananda part at all. They are saying the focus. Swamiji in one place in the lecture is saying, look at the ocean, not the wave. Look at the ocean, not the wave. Wave is actually distracting us. It's creating dissolution but it's actually delusion, sorry. All this multiplicity is causing delusion in us. But if you look at the ocean, how does that help? Because all the waves that we are focusing on originated from Brahman only, from water only, from the ocean only. So look at the ocean, not the wave. Because if we focus on the multiplicity, that will delude us. So we have to focus on the oneness. And that is the real truth, that is the reality. By will of God, undifferentiated subtle matter transformed into fire, water and earth. We know that, right? There we are actually more familiar with the 5 elements, right? He's actually talking about the last 3 elements. Even in Upanishad also, in Chandogya Upanishad, they talk about only 3. elements, not the first two, because they make a distinction that murta and amurta. Amurta is that which you cannot perceive. The space and air, there is no form to it. But these three has form. So when they're talking about how the manifestation happened, they concentrated more on the last three. And they in together they are called Teja Vannam. Fire is Teja, water is Apaha, and earth is Annam. Teja Vannam. In one word they call it. So fire, water, that doesn't mean that the space and air are gone. Actually, all these things derived from space and air. So those two are there, but they are talking about this fire, water, around. And these differentiated elements manifest three kinds of qualities. We know that: sattva, rajas, and tamas. And all this mixture of these subtle three elements manifesting in the form of the gross objects, this is called triplication or trividkarana. Just like the panchakarana, you might be familiar with panchakarana, where the five elements, we also talked about it, how they mix with each other and create from the subtle to the gross. That is called panchakarana. Here they're talking about three elements. That's why trividkarana, triplication. The created world is as real as Brahman, according to Ramanujacharya. Why? Because it's nothing but Ishvara. They are actually, the perceived world is part of, each one of the objects is part of Ishvara, part of God. And he also says Maya is the inscrutable power of God. How does he look at individuals? Individual has a body and a soul. Body is matter, but it's also part of God, as we discussed earlier. The finite thing is also part of God. Both upadana karana and nimitta karana, both the material cause, God is the material cause, and efficient cause. So everything, the cause of everything is God. So nothing is outside of God. Body is matter, that is also part of God. Soul, eternally existing, but finite in the body, in the individual level, is also part of God. Everything is part of God. Consciousness of soul is independent of its connection with body. Just like at the Ishvara level it's self-conscious, here also the soul is self-conscious. It doesn't borrow consciousness from anybody, not from the body, mind. Here there is a slight difference. Consciousness is not the essence, but eternal quality of a soul. In the individual body there is soul and body, but soul or consciousness, in case of Shankara he said, consciousness is the thing, that pure, Brahman is pure consciousness, that which manifests itself or projects itself as something else. He is not going to say something else, but it's, whatever is manifested is also Brahman. But he is saying that it is a quality of the soul, consciousness. And anytime if you look at from Shankara's point of view, quality means something you have. So anything that you have, you may not have at some point. So it's dependent on time, space and causation. So it's limited, it's changing, all those things, all those ideas are coming. But if you look at from Ramanuja's point of view, everything is part of God. The soul, the body, whatever you see, there is only one creator, there is only one source, there is only one origin, and that is Ishvara, the God. Then what is Ramanuja's concept of liberation? As I mentioned earlier, it's sought through karma and jnana, leading to bhakti. This is devotion. What are the karmas? Obligatory duties, the scripture ordained duties. Nitya karma, nimitta karma and all that. Some of the kamya karmas also. Jnana is the understanding the nature of God, the individual soul and the universe. Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. Understanding that, the proper knowledge of that is jnana. Through that, you reach the bhakti, devotion. Liberation is obtained only if God is pleased. We actually have to please the Lord. In his case, it's Vishnu. Right? Intense remembrance of God, meditation and prayers lead to vision of God. We call it Ishvara Darshan, vision of God. It's possible only through intense remembrance of God. Meditation and prayers. Narada describes this intense remembrance. He said, Ananya Bhakti in Narada, Bhakti Sutra. And how is that Ananya Bhakti? A moment of separation from that, your object of love, which is God. It will give you intense pain. A moment of separation from that. So that is that intense remembrance. It's not like, every now and then, once we come back from work, we remember God. It's not talking about that as an intense remembrance. Constant remembrance that everything is happening through God only. He is the source. Everything is happening through Him only. So intense remembrance of God, meditation, prayers lead to vision of God. It's also called Shakshatkara. Ishvara Shakshatkara. Ishvara Darshan, Shakshatkara. Aprakshana.
I was going to say that.
Aprakshana. What Shankara would call Aprakshana. He is saying vision of God. Obtained by destruction of ajnana and karmas by which the body is caused. Why do we get a body? Why do we get a birth? Because of ajnana and desire. All these karmas that we are doing is because of we actually had a desire. Not one desire, multiple desires. Because of that, that leads to all kinds of activities. And why do we have the desire? Because we are ignorant of our true nature. If we know our true nature, what happens? We know that we are completely fulfilled. We don't need anything. Why are we hankering after this object and that object? We are completely fulfilled. That will be the ultimate understanding of our true nature. Right? But we don't understand that. We think this body and mind is the true nature. And that creates that the moment we see ourselves as a physical entity, anything else we perceive, we look at it as physical. If we can elevate at the level of mind, if we see ourselves as a mental element, we will see everything, we will perceive everything as mental element. That's what happens to all these great musicians or artists or something who is actually at the mental level. They don't, majority of them are scientists, great scientists. It doesn't care about this body, whether this body gets food or not. He couldn't care less. His mind is elevated from the body level. A true scientist I'm talking now, not any, nowadays anybody studies computer science is called computer scientist. I'm not talking about that. So they have elevated their identity at the mind level. They have transcended the body level identity. So similarly, those who are identifying at the spiritual level, they see that is the condition of the saintly people. They see all being as a spiritual being. They don't say this body, black or white or short or long or rich or poor. All this distinction doesn't matter to them because they have transcended all these body-mind level identities. So ajnana and karmas, we have to destroy those. Obviously there are steps, and obtained through the complete self-surrender. Sharanagati. God is the only object of love. They cannot say, I think it was Dalai Lama who said, if I'm not mistaken, that God created these objects to be used and human beings to love. And we do just the opposite. We use human beings and love objects. So here, God is the only object of love. So we don't have much time. So we will actually, so this is the whole of Ramanuja's teaching at a glance. We talked about the karma and jnana. So there is the preparatory steps, 7 preparatory steps. Viveka, Vimoka, Abhyasa, Kriya, Kalyana, Anudharsha and Anuvasada. Right? 7 layers of preparation, preparatory steps. We'll go into each one of those in more detail in our next class. But that leads to the bhakti. Anything that you see underlined underneath the dotted line? Anukulasya sankalpaha. There are 6 steps to self-surrender. Anukulasya sankalpaha. Pratikulasya varjanam. Rakshishyateti vishwasaha. Gotritra varnam. Atmanikshepam. And karpanneya. These are the steps, 6 steps to do self-surrender. Shadvidha Sharanagati. Iti Shadvidha Sharanagati. That's the whole verse. Anukulasya sankalpa, Pratikulasya varjanam, Rakshishyati vishwasaya, Chitta varnam, Atmanikshepam, Karpanneya iti Shadvidha Sharanagati. 6 steps of Sharanagati. So once we have mastered the preparatory steps, we can slowly think about how to approach the self-surrender as Shantaji asked from Advaita point of view. But here, from the Vishishta Advaita point of view, he said these are the steps for self-surrender. If we do that, and actually you will see the Karpanneya, it literally means humility. But what it means is, all these steps are possible. Maharaj gives a beautiful explanation of this Karpanneya. He says, all these steps are possible. Anukulasya sankalpaha, I can do everything that pleases the Lord. Pratikulasya varjanam, anything that displeases the Lord, I will discard it, I will stay away from it. Rakshishyati vishwasaha, I will have full faith that God is the protector. Not only that, Gotritra varnam, actually take refuge in Him. Atmanikshepa, surrendering to Him. And Karpanneya is the last step. It's called humility, but the Maharaj, the way he explains it, is all these steps are possible to know fully, to be convinced about that all these steps are possible. Step 1 through 6 is because of you, God. Because of you, Lord, all these steps were possible for me. To know that is Karpanneya. Any question?
We don't have time.
Yeah. We will go into each one of these, starting from the Viveka, Vimoka and all that.
Next
We'll
class.
elaborate that in our next class. We'll conclude for today.
Prayer.
Om Purnamada
Purnamidam Purnaat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Avashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Pranamastu.